how we use the same ideas of shape, profile, and color so that you can easily identify them from one another. All right. So I'm going to go really quickly through some of our archetypes, because the next thing we do is we go for every area. We say, well, we need 4 or 5 monsters for this area, and we have probably about 100 monsters planned for the game as a whole. Don't quote me on that, but it's a rough number. And it's really important. So a lot of these monsters repeat function, even if they have different ideas or different abilities. And so we archetype those functions. So the first one we call is a swarmer. Fighting tons and tons of dudes that die really easy is super fun, and that's what these guys' jobs are. Most of them are melee characters, most of them are really weak, but they are also really good to provide kind of a health wall so that more interesting or more complex monsters can interact with them. Ranged creatures, which are kind of our stock most threatening thing we can put out there. I mean, certainly we can put a boss or something bigger, but ranged creatures, because they don't have to move towards you, they can all attack you at once, tend to be pretty dangerous. Lieutenants, which do things like resurrect enemies and buff them and spawn. These are typically not placed in high numbers, but they're put in to be kind of this high priority target that you want to go after. Elites are basically meant to make you kind of pause for a second and encounter something that takes more than a couple hits to kill, or maybe has a really high damage attack. They are kind of again a focus, like a target that has a very high priority to it. But unlike the lieutenant, they're often a little bit scarier. You have to, you can't just run straight into them every time. So an AoE character, or what we sometimes call area of denial characters, because a lot of their job is to change the play space. I'm going to set the ground on fire underneath you, and now you don't want to stand there anymore. So when the player has to kind of react like that, it's interesting gameplay. So weakeners are kind of like lieutenants in that they're high priority, but they also have the side effect of making swarmers and ranged guys even more threatening. So, and then we have a bunch of one-offs that are just kind of cool ideas we have. I'm not going to explain what all these are. I just thought you'd have fun debating the names on the forums, because we come up with a lot of crazy names. So, spreadsheet, yeah, because we really wanted this presentation to be exciting. So, spreadsheets are not just the tools of bean counters. If there's any kids in the audience, learn your math if you want to work in video games. It's important. So we use spreadsheets, this spreadsheet in particular, we call it the monster progression spreadsheet, and every one of these colored bars is a different area, and it just kind of shows how we plan our monsters from area to area. And when we do that, we look at shape, color, and archetypes, and we make sure that we have a good mix in each one, and that each one complements. And then as we move from area to area, we're also introducing new challenges and new monster types at a really good rate, and this is our tool to do that.
I'm going to walk you through the monster pipeline that we use. It's basically the process by which a monster gets into the game. The first step is to start with a concept, and the concept can really come from anywhere. It can come from somebody on the team who went on vacation to Hawaii and saw something interesting and had a monster idea visually. It could come from, someone played through the latest level environment and they said, this desert environment really is lacking in, a particular, a wasp. Or it could come from someone who just has a mechanical idea. This sketch comes from Carl Lavoie on our team, who said, "I really want a monster that will just leap off of walls. I don't care if it's what kind of monster it is. I just want it to leap off of the wall. I think that'd be a fun mechanic to play with." And so the initial idea comes from anyone on the team and from anywhere. Once we have that initial idea, we need to flesh it out. So we'll start with that initial concept and flesh out all the other details about what that monster might involve. All this is done on paper. It's very multidisciplinary to try and just flesh out and make sure everyone has a picture of where we're going. After we have that, we're going to do a very rough art pass on it. We don't want to spend too much time on the animations because maybe the abilities might change. We don't want to spend too much time on the look because we haven't seen it in the game yet. So this is just enough to get a prototype into the game as quickly as possible. The next step is to actually hook it up and give it some of its basic abilities. Again, this is a rough pass. The goal is to prototype the monster. Jay mentioned the archetypes. You know, you've got your spawners and your swarmers and your range, and we're just trying to just get the rough brush strokes in to try and figure out whether or not this monster is going to be fun. We drop them into the level, and this is our first time that we actually get to see how the monster looks in the game. This is a very important step. This is where we might actually do a little bit of back and forth. This is a chance where we've had a chance to see how does the monster look, behave, and interact. You know, how does it look against the environment? How does it behave with the creatures and with the player? And how does it interact with the groups that it's been spawned with? If we're happy with it at this point, then that's when we start looking at doing the more detailed polish. We're going to look at giving it new abilities. Maybe we like most of a monster, but we really want it to be able to burrow underground as well, and so we'll add that. Or maybe we want the rare version to be the ever so loved lightning enchanted variety, and so this is where we flesh out the details. And then finally, when we're happy with that, is the monster creation process is the final art. So now the animators can polish up the animation now that they know exactly how fast it's going to move. Or the artist can make the texture variants for the various difficulty levels for other versions of the monster later on.
All right, now that we've heard how we create monsters or the process we use, let's talk about specific monsters. The sand wasp is a natural creature. It's not demonic. We wanted to showcase it because it's interesting in that it kind of shows that the world of Sanctuary or the world of Diablo is a very dangerous place on its own. It doesn't need demons to kill you. It plays a support role. This is a swarming creature, like Jay and Wyatt were talking about. This is a creature that is not very tough on its own. It's very much used in conjunction with other creatures. If you find this creature by itself, you just kill it. It's not really a problem, but when you get a bunch of them together, you get what we call the bullet hell effect, which is a slow-moving wall of damage or death. It's very hard to deal with. They're also very handy or very deadly when they're supporting any other creatures, you know, because they're just throwing these flying barbs at you while you're trying to fight some other melee creature or something. Do you want me to just control it? Or? Yeah. And now Julian's going to talk about how we did the effects.
We really wanted to support where design was coming from in terms of this bullet hell idea. So we started by, just with the rapid fire attack idea, we started with a whole lot of different kinds of projectiles. And none of them really kind of stuck for one reason or another. And then we got this idea, well, where does this skill really come from? And the other thing it's really trying to evoke is this old-timey arcade action idea. And so we hit on this idea, well, what if the sand wasp actually birthed other little mini wasps that flew at you? That would be really cool, and it would really support where we're coming from. And of course, we got that into the game, and the team didn't quite understand where we were coming from. So I was like, well, you know, how can we communicate, even to the rest of the team, exactly what we're trying to get across and why this is such a cool thing? So I came up with this. The best way to do this is with graphics. So I came up with this little demonstration again that says everything, I think. So here's your player, and you're going to get used to the controls first. You just need something to attack. There is a boss. And the boss is brutally hard.
All right, next we went to the Fallen family because you can't have Diablo without the Fallen. These are the classic Diablo demons. A little bit of background on them. They used to be these exalted demons that were Azmodan's right hand. Before the Dark Exile, which is when Mephisto, Baal, and Diablo were exiled to Sanctuary, they tried, Azmodan and Belial tried once before to do this, and the Fallen in their previous state were the instruments they used to try to get this thing done. When they failed, Diablo turned them into their present impish, comical state, and that's how they've existed since then. Now they're kind of freelance. They don't work for any particular demon. They're just kind of equal opportunity demons who work for everybody. One of the things that we really loved about them, and this is, once again, we're reinforcing that idea of the different creatures working together, is their family relationships.